Hey everyone, Wayne Fox back with a quick video. A couple weeks ago I did a video about the new features in Lightroom version 9 or Lightroom Classic 2019 as what they're calling it. And in that video I mentioned one little problem that I ran into, and I don't know if you really want to call it a bug. It's a feature that Lightroom has changed, and it can actually kind of be one of those gotcha things if you're not careful. It has to do with using one of the old process versions if you ever go back to an old image. Lightroom has had 5 process versions over the years, and 3 saw a significant change in the slider arrangement and the slider names and what they did. In the past, you've always been able to edit and stay in the process version that the image was in, and you only had to move it to a new process version if you wanted to. And in the current Lightroom, that isn't the case. If you have an image in process version 1 or 2, from what I've tested, it looks like Lightroom will leave it there, will leave the old sliders in place, and you can stay in that process version without updating to the newest version. But if you have an image that's in process version 3 or 4, the minute you do anything at all in the develop panel, which will add a history step to the history, including simply turning your brushes off and on, it will immediately convert that image into process version 5. Now, most of the time it's not a problem, but there's a few times I've had it kind of snag me. I have an old folder of quite a few images, and I go back every once in a while when I get bored or want something, and I play with them a little more to see if I like them better than I did, or if my skills are better and I can get a little bit better, quality of an image. And I was doing that the other day, and this is when I picked up on a pretty good example of that. So let me go over to the computer and I'll show you exactly what I saw. And I've seen this happen in some cases. Most of the time you won't see it at all, but there are times where it's very, very subtle, but it's enough that it's a concern. And I've had a couple which are, dramatic enough that I have to fix them once I go to process version 5. Anyway, let me show you what I've got. You'll notice when I hover over the lightning bolt, it says process version 3, and it also says update to current process version, which means this is actually also a button. And in my calibration panel, it says version 3 as well. And here I have a pop-up where I can move it to another version if I want as well. Now, what I'm going to do is go to my brush tool. I'm going to simply turn the brushes off, and I want you to watch the lightning bolt. And I turn the brushes off and back on, but notice now the lightning bolt is gone, and in my calibration panel it says version 5. So without even asking me, giving me a chance to compare, or warning me, I moved from version 3 to 5. Now, most of the time it's not a big deal. You can't even see a change, but let me just show you in this particular image. My brush works pretty sloppy. This is an old image, and I've tried to fix it a few times, and I'm not sure if I like it yet or not. But we're going to go back to before. You'll see that I'm now back in process version 3, and I'm going to zoom in this region right here. When I move in my history to the new process version, look what happens to all that detail. And if you want to know why, let's turn the brush tool back on. We'll select the brush. We'll hit the O key to turn our overlay on. We'll zoom back in. Notice that there's a little bit of the brush is kind of out in this region here. You can barely see it, but for some reason, process version 5 exaggerates that. So I've seen some differences that were more significant than this, and others that are more problematic than this. What I recommend you do is, instead of simply making a change, before you do anything, go ahead and force it to version 5 by clicking the lightning bolt, and then tell it to review your changes so you'll get a before after. And this is where I was looking at this, and this is where I picked up on this. I know it's pretty subtle. Most of the image looks exactly the same, but if I zoom in here, I can easily see the problem. And I can try to figure out what the problem is. In this case, I turn my brush tool on, I selected a brush, I turn my overlay on, and I could see it. So what I need to do then is go and turn my erase on, and I need to go in and erase this region here and clean all that up. Now, what I'm really going to do with this image is delete that brush totally and start from scratch. I'm going to see if I can do a better job with just using some exposure adjustments and dynamic range. But now, if I go back, now you can see that in this area here, I now have the two images now look the same. Anyway, little bug in Lightroom 5. I've seen some other weird things going on. Technically, you should be able to edit this image without any issues and keep comparing to this image. And so you can work to get the converted image to be identical to the previous one. I've seen a couple where it's some slight color changes. There's been some graduated filters that are working slightly differently. But the good news is at least you can fix it. The bad news is if you really want to change it and everything's perfect and it messes it up, you can't stay in version 4 or version 3. Your only choice in that case would be to reinstall Lightroom 8, and that would allow you to work in version 3 or 4 if it's really, really dramatic and you just can't fix it. Okay, well, I tried to make that quick. I know it's a really tedious subject. If you don't have any old images and you're not working in older process versions, no big deal. But anyway, hopefully some of you that might help. And until the next time, hey, see ya.